Hey guys, what's up? This is Stock Retail coming back to you. Had a few things in the news today about AMC and Hycroft, so just excited to cover that. And before I get started, this will be one more discussion on filings and votes and all of that stuff, but I'm going to stay lighter on that today, and I'm hoping this is the last time I discuss the vote on a video. I think everybody kind of knows where I stand already. If you want to go much deeper on the filing and sort of the mechanics of what we're voting on, I feel like I've kind of already been there, done that. You can go see those videos, so I won't belabor the point today. But there was the actual proxy filing for the vote itself today. So I'll kind of go through a couple highlights as I see them. It'll be a little shorter on that. And then, like I said, if you want to double click, you can go to other videos. Um, and frankly, for me, it'd be a lot more fun to not be doing filing videos anymore and start talking about the business again. So I'll kind of give a little preview of that. In fact, here's our agenda today. So I'll cover proxy materials for the vote. I'm going to talk a little bit about Antara hedging because that's something that was kind of buzzing over my Twitter feed today. And then I'll kind of hint at some business updates. That's just a lot more fun, to be honest. And, if you haven't seen my video about the end game as I see it, frankly, I think the fundamentals are what caused the squeeze. And actually, Adam used very similar language. I feel like I made the video first, so he copied me. And I say that tongue in cheek. I do not think he copied me. I just think it's probable that I've got a business background. He's a business leader. Maybe we think similarly. But if you didn't see his speech at the Titanic showing in Phoenix, you might go look at that. There's a few folks who had posted that on Twitter, and he talked about the same kind of idea that maybe the fundamentals are what forces the squeeze, which is why I have fun talking about that. So we'll get back to more of the fun discussion on movies and results and all of that. Speaking of fun results, today, if you didn't see, I know some of you maybe are a little more on YouTube than Twitter. It was all over my Twitter feed, actually starting last night, that Hycroft kind of came out with sort of a merch storefront, an online storefront with like some silver coins and some paperweights, kind of with gold and little tubes of gold flecks and stuff. And actually, last night my first thought was, oh, I wonder if this is some knockoff and this isn't real. So I didn't retweet it, and I actually emailed the merch company themselves. And then by this morning when I woke up, so I think Diane Garrett had tweeted herself saying, hey, this is out there. And by the time I woke up, I'm West Coast, so I'm a little later than some of you. Those silver coins were already sold out. So that's just awesome, like to see the energy of apes just scooping that stuff up. The same thing happened to me with those AMC tumblers in particular. I want one of those for drinking my coffee every morning. And you all scooped them up before I ever even got them. I have a background in operations and supply chain, and I can tell you when you sell out product that quickly, your margins are pretty tasty. So, there's no discounting. You're selling at full price. So that's just really cool to see. All of our energy, but also what I can only imagine are sort of the margins and the revenue on that product for both AMC and for Hycroft. So that's exciting stuff. Hopefully, they've got some good forecasters who can kind of decide how much more product we're going to buy. That'd be great. So, without further ado, let's just kind of dive in. The first thing I saw, one more thing. On the vote, like I mentioned, I'm not going to really go deep here. I've done enough videos on the vote elsewhere. If you want to see kind of where I stand, I'm a pretty clear yes vote. I've explained why. I think it actually lends itself more to the fundamentals and strengthening the company. And I believe if you strengthen the company, you weaken the short thesis, as it were. So us stronger, shorts weaker. I like that. So that's why I'm a yes vote, but I'm not going to cover that here today. You can go to the other vote videos if you want to see more details on all of this. But anyway, today I'll just cover a few things that I feel like either were different in these proxy materials, or maybe there's a couple things, just points of note I hadn't touched on before. So the first of which is this vote is non-routine. And why I'm highlighting that is you can kind of see the language here. I always say you can screenshot this. I actually would, as usual, encourage you to go actually look at the filing for yourself. You can find it on the SEC Edgar site. I'm sure you can find it on the investor relations site for AMC itself as well. But in that filing, you can see this language, which basically says, so in like a routine, normal proxy vote, say you were just like re-electing the board or something like that. If you don't vote your shares, then your broker kind of can vote shares on your behalf. Well, in this case, the broker specifically, because it's non-routine, you can see this language in here that essentially they cannot vote your shares for you if you don't vote them. So there's a couple things that means. One is you've seen Adam both in the filings, but also verbally in that speech he gave in Phoenix, kind of really, really highlighting that we ought to vote. So whether you agree with me and you're a yes vote, whether you disagree with me and you're a no vote, the encouragement is to vote. Vote your shares. Exercise your rights as a shareholder. And I would also encourage that strongly, both for yes and for no votes. Let's all participate. But I think it's interesting to note that in this case, your broker cannot vote your shares for you. And there's language also that I'm going to come to. Let's see if that's actually not the. Okay, we'll get to that. Okay, so maybe you may see some language, and this caught my eye, so that's why I wanted to share it. Because if you see here, maybe I can kind of highlight for you if you're looking. So it talks about 16,700 basically holders of record for the common stock, so that's AMC, and then about 14,800 holders of record for APE. And I was like, wait a sec, there's millions of us. What are you talking about? 16,000, on AMC and 14, or maybe 17,000 on AMC and 15,000 on APE. So I emailed investor relations, and thankfully they got back to me fairly quickly. This is just the count of people who've registered their shares. So I think that's basically the DRS kind of a situation. So there's millions of us. Here's who's registered their shares. I know Adam in the past has referenced just how many shares that adds up to. I don't remember those numbers, so I won't quote them here. I know it was pretty high in terms of the amounts of shares per holder on those numbers, but I don't remember them, so I can't quote that here. So if you see these numbers, basically I'm just saying don't spin on them. That's just people who've direct registered their shares. That's not the millions of us. So, I'm not worried about that. Basically, it means, the rest of us kind of have our shares under our brokers. Okay, so then the other thing is if you do have shares with a broker and you haven't direct registered them. So actually, I should even go back. Those who have direct registered, there's some language throughout the proxy. You may want to go check if that's you around how you can vote with the depository shares or the depository holder. So check that out. Since that's not most of us, I'm not covering that, but you may want to check that out. For the rest of us, we would get the normal proxy materials from our broker. I get those directly in my email. You may get those in the physical mail. I get them in my email because I'm paperless with my broker. But regardless, you'll be getting proxy materials. Those should be going out. And just to cover, there is language, and this goes actually back to when APE itself was created. There's language in there that, I mentioned your broker cannot vote your shares for you. And then that matters because a non-vote with your broker-held shares, basically ComputerShare has the right to vote those as a yes. So if, I've told you I'm a yes vote, but I just want to have also the integrity to tell you no voters, if you were a no vote, you can't just not vote and then at least say, well, I didn't vote yes. Your shares could potentially be voted as a yes with ComputerShare. And that's this language I'm trying to highlight. So pause this, read this if you want, or go to the filing. I don't want to overshare, encourage that, I guess, because I am a strong yes vote, but I don't know. I want us to all be apes together. So if you felt strongly and you were a no vote, you need to make sure to vote. Otherwise, basically, any of these shares can become a yes vote. So just want to make sure everybody understands that, and that's in the filing. And then for me, the exciting part is just they'll share the preliminary results. So all of us, for me, I get that email, I click to vote. I'm going to do that right away. So potentially, depending on when they get this to us, I may have voted 2-3 weeks before the proxy meeting itself. And so there will be the announcement at the shareholder meeting. As shared in other videos, you can kind of go see how to even attend that meeting if you want to attend in person. There's going to be a webcast for the rest of us. I'm tempted to go, but that's a bigger trip, and I don't think it's worth me spending the time and money. So, but if you're excited and you wanted to get over there and you had the means, there is language in the proxy material for that as well. But either way, the exciting part to me is they'll announce the vote at the meeting. And it says preliminary results, so I suppose if there were more votes that came in at the meeting itself, or if there's even language in the filing, if you want to go check it out about, say you vote and you decide you want to change your vote, there's a process for that as well. So there's reasons why they'll wait till after the vote itself to make it really, really official. But put it this way, that there's language in the filing that says they think APE will stop trading as of the end of the 14th, and that they're announcing these preliminary results in the meeting. So I would think that we'll know, but I suppose if it was close enough or something, they may kind of be cautious. The other thing that I've not put in this presentation is if you go see, there's language also, like let's say it gets down to the wire and they're not sure they have enough yes votes, they have the ability to basically call a vote to move the meeting, and they can do that too, but I'm not too concerned about that. To be honest, what I've seen, it's not a very scientific poll, but somebody did a poll on Twitter and there were like 700 or 800 votes and it was tracking at like a 90% yes. We know Antara shares are voting yes. So I would just say, to give the company an idea of who we are and how many shares are out there and all of that, I would just strongly, strongly, strongly encourage voting, whether you're a yes or a no. Like I said, that's the same thing Adam's done. It's in the filing. It's in his, speeches. Everybody should vote. But I guess, I don't know, depending on where you sit, it feels like it's tracking towards a yes vote. I don't know. Certainly I don't know that for sure. Okay, let's talk a little bit about, let's kind of switch gears here and talk about what we saw with Antara today. So if you don't know, first of all, I've mentioned 257 million. Sometimes I've rounded up to 260. I saw in the filing today it's actually 258 million. So, there's been kind of some give or take there. But so it's 258 million shares they own long. Okay, they're long almost 260 million shares. And then there was noise on Twitter today like, oh my gosh, Antara holds these puts. Well, it's 210,000 puts that represent, and I'm rounding there, guys, so we'd have to go back to the filings and check the exact number. So please don't hold me to that. That's a rounded number. But basically 210,000 puts that represent about 21 million shares. And so here's just my point of view. And like I said, I'll just sort of clarify. Those top 2 points are kind of facts. Now I'm going to give you opinion. Don't need you to agree with me. Just sharing my point of view, and then you can kind of walk away and think through what's yours. So they've only hedged basically 8% of their value. Or 8% of their shares, let's say. What do I mean by that? So it's actually very normal to hedge a long position with puts. That is not the same as going short. So in fact, you see my last point. Puts are not short selling. It's an option to sell shares at a higher price if the stock goes down. Well, if you owned, 260 million shares, it's just simple, straight up risk management that you should hedge that position. Like, no financial advisor would ever say you should have that heavy of a position and not hedge it. So, and let's just remember, these people are called hedge funds. You hedge a position. Or just think, even if you were like into sports betting and you had some huge bet, you're going to hedge it so that if it goes the wrong way for you, you're not out everything. That's just completely normal in my opinion. Now, I want to acknowledge that some apes are a little frustrated because I think these puts were bought in December around the same time they bought their shares of APE, and I believe they're puts on AMC. So yeah, they've profited on those. But let's also admit, that's this middle bullet next to my point of view. That's the arbitrage. We talked about that. I even referenced the arbitrage all the way back in a video I made at the time the announcement was made. There were people who would have believed that if APE is going to convert into AMC, then APE is going to go up, and it TBD on what AMC is going to do. I'm being very cautious in my words here because you look at the cost to borrow, you look at some other metrics, it sure feels to me like there's some, I don't know, squeeze indicators on AMC. But in terms of the arbitrage, them buying APE, hedging with puts on AMC, in terms of risk management and in terms of arbitrage, that's just what this is. And now we can talk all day about, do we like Antara or not? That's not what I'm commenting on here at all. But what I saw was, I felt a little too much spin personally from some apes, like, oh my gosh, they have puts, this is all entirely corrupt and messed up, and kind of screaming. And I guess I just don't personally like that response. I am a person who would like to sort of calmly and rationally assess the context of a situation. And so again, if I just say to myself out loud, I believe when you say things out loud, you start to get clarity. And if I just say out loud, they bought almost 260 million shares. They only hedged 8% of those with puts. And that way, if the shares go down, they can sort of protect themselves and cash out on that. So I don't know, makes sense to me. I don't personally plan to spin on that. I don't know. I guess kind of you do you. I'm not trying to judge anybody who thinks that that's a problem, but I guess I'm just saying to me it's kind of a whatever. So that's that on the Antara hedging. I don't think I want to cover that more. All right, so coming soon, I mentioned I'd much rather talk business updates. So I track every day all of the box office revenue, have all that, tracking Q1. There's some pretty big announcements in terms of movies coming in, movies going out, movies I wasn't tracking, movies I thought were hitting Q1 that moved to Q2. There's some pretty big shifts, I'll say, between in all three of the first three quarters. And so, frankly, I've got some pretty exciting news, I believe. But also there's sometimes if something slides out of one quarter and slides into another, there's a push and pull to that. So it means maybe we've got some one or two quarters that might have gone down and one or two quarters that might have gone up. Forgive me for being a little coy. I'd rather show you all that information, but let's put it this way. Overall, I'm pretty excited as I think through the timing of what we're dealing with now, the vote, the conversion, when we're getting last year's Q4 results, when Q1 comes in, how Q2 will probably be tracking, how Q3 shapes up. We've got some really great business results coming up. In fact, as I film this, we're only like a day and a half from, Ant-Man, actually, sorry, 2+ days from Ant-Man and the Wasp coming out. And we've got a lot of movies tracking ahead of my forecast so far in Q1. Q2 is, shaping up to be a beast. And we roll on. I've told you kind of this idea of we're moving from strength to strength at this point. So I'll give a lot more on that. I'll back that up with a lot of data to show you where I'm getting my forecast, which movies, timing, even maybe some information. I'd love to also do some education on how to read an income statement and what all the lines are in there so that I can kind of help you see. I'm not just forecasting movies, I'm forecasting AMC's business results. So what do I think about certain expense lines? What do I think about certain income lines? And then I'll also probably do some education at some point on how to read a balance sheet. So you've started to hear Adam use this language about a healthy balance sheet. And I'd love to just, some of you are probably even, ahead of me. Some of you are maybe with me in terms of your understanding of the balance sheet. But certainly some of you probably haven't read one before, or maybe don't know how to look at that and how to think about that. And I'd love to just continue to share. I've taken master's level classes on how to read this stuff, and I would just love to give that to you guys for free and just arm ourselves with facts. So that'll come soon. More to come on all that. The last thing I just want to say today, just kind of a parting thought. Boy, this weekend and the beginning of this week, we just have news bombarding us all over Twitter. And I don't know if you're like me. Well, so not just Twitter, right? YouTube, if you're on Telegram, Facebook, wherever you are. Boy, yesterday as I scrolled through my feed, it was just tough stuff after tough stuff, a lot of negative news, a lot of hard things. And it can get to you, right? It can start to feel heavy. And if you care about the world, if you care about people around you, you can kind of feel that. And so for me, there was just this thought of, I was realizing I was spending too much of my day kind of consuming this negativity, and it was filling me up. And so I don't know about you, maybe you're not at the place I am and you're all good. But as for me, I realized, I need more moments where I pause, I look away from the screen, interact with the people around you. Maybe you just even let your brain take a break. Because I was also realizing even just the physiology of, let's say I see someone presenting something negative on a screen in front of me, or there's people who tweet about, I don't know, people fighting, stuff blowing up, things getting shot down. There's actually kind of an adrenaline response your body has to that. And what happens to you too is over time, you just kind of have this amped up response over and over and over to these hundreds or maybe even thousands of things you see through the day. You do that day in and day out, and you're kind of destined for a crash, emotionally, physically, mentally. So I just wanted to encourage you all, like, find those moments where, I don't know what it is for you. Go for a run, go for a walk, talk to your friends or kids or pets, do some meditation, drink some tea, just something that gets you kind of away from all of this stuff being presented to you, and where you go and kind of get centered and detach a little bit. At least that's something I needed. And so in case some of you need that a little bit, I just wanted to share that. And honestly, even just a little bit of time and kind of dwelling on more positive things has just frankly made my day today a lot better. That doesn't mean I don't want to be a person of deep care for others. There's some really heavy stuff going on in the world and it matters. So I'm not detaching from that. I'm just saying all day, every day, focusing on some tough stuff, I don't find that to be, you know, totally healthy either. I've got to sometimes focus my mind on other things. So I don't know, just in case that, encourages you, find whatever it is for you that sort of gives you that little mental and emotional break that you need, and then come back rested and stronger because we're going to win this thing. So let's go.